Vermont Viewpoint is a public affairs program produced and funded by WDEV and the Radio Vermont Group. We welcome listener feedback. Email your comments to vtviewpoint@radiovermont.com.
Good morning. This is Vermont Viewpoint on WDEV. I'm Rick Singeri. It might seem like only a few months ago, but after years of debate, the F-35s first arrived in Burlington on September 19th, 2019. The jets left Fort Worth, Texas, and in the matter of just a few hours, they were looping over Burlington International Airport before landing at their new home. By October of last year, the final of 20 F-35s to be based here had arrived. So what exactly are we doing with 20 F-35s in Vermont? How do they actually perform? Are they as noisy as some feared? And have they delivered an economic impact to our state? These are questions we'll be asking Colonel David Shevchik, the 158th Fighter Wing Commander. Colonel Shevchik, welcome to Vermont Viewpoint.
Good morning, Rick. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Great having you. Listeners, if you want to ask Colonel Shevchik a question about the F-35s, you can call us, 244-1777, 877-291-8255. You can also email vtviewpoint@radiovermont.com. Colonel, I mentioned that there are 20 F-35s. How many F-16s did we have before that?
At one time, we had upwards of 21 F-16s. So a comparable amount, about the same number.
And why do we have, that many? Because how many are flown at any one time?
So right now of F-35s, we have 20, which is our full complement, and different bases are assigned a certain number, our primary assigned aircraft number, and we're assigned 20. And typically at any one time in our schedule, as we transparently kind of put out our flying windows and schedules, we're somewhere in the realm of 4 to 8 in the morning, 4 to 8 in the afternoon. So not all the same aircraft are flown at the same time because they have maintenance needs that we have to, keep them up to standards and meet the requirements.
Once one is flown, does it require immediate maintenance and then before it can go out again?
No, it doesn't. We have an exceptional maintenance team, professionals that when they land, they basically do a turn on the aircraft, and so they check it out, make sure it's good to go if it is flying in the afternoon, say if it flew for the morning. And then there are more extensive requirements at certain hundreds of hours, at certain gates, if you will, based upon how many hours the aircraft is flown.
Now, without, revealing any military secrets, of course, what are the exercises that are flown out of Burlington?
So all of our missions here are basically flown to support our training mission requirements. So we do all of our training over typically western and central New York. We don't do training typically over Vermont, and we also try to the max extent possible, we do a lot of our training needs at off-station bases. So we purposely do that as one of our noise mitigation measures to lessen the impact to the community, but we still have our mission and training requirements that we have to meet.
How many members of the Vermont Air National Guard are trained to fly the F-35s?
So typically we have around 30 to 35 pilots that we try to keep proficient in meeting the training requirements, and that's similar and comparable to what it was in the F-16 as well.
Outstanding. Are you one of those?
I am one of those. I don't fly quite as much as my counterparts with other priorities and things going on, but I am one of those.
I understand. All right, let's take a call. We've got Fred joining us. Hi, Fred. Go right ahead.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, my question is, do you guys do conventional gun combat movies like the high yo-yo or the low yo-yo? And what is the minimum AGL for split S?
I don't understand any of that. So, Colonel, go right ahead.
Well, I appreciate the question, Fred. I'm actually I'm sitting here with my operations group commander, Colonel Graber.
Okay.
I'm going to let him answer that question.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for the question. You're obviously a student of the art of dogfighting. So we do use the maneuvers known as the high yo-yo and the low yo-yo still. Those are basically, for the listeners out there, those are dogfighting maneuvers where you take the plane vertically up or vertically down and try to maneuver to a what we call a gun employment zone behind the enemy aircraft. So, yeah, we still use those. It's very similar to what it was in the F-16 still, but the F-35's got a few tricks up its sleeve that the F-16 indeed didn't have due to its advanced fly-by-wire characteristics. As far as the split S question, well, we have some restrictions on that as far as what we can do when we can do acrobatic maneuvers. Of course, the split S, again, for the listeners, is where you roll the airplane on its back and do the bottom half of a loop, if you will, so half of a loop downward. We would start that probably at about 10,000 feet AGL, so above ground level, and no lower than 5,000 feet AGL if we really needed it in combat.
All right. Hey, thank you, Colonel Graber, for jumping in there. That's Colonel Nathan Graber. And we now know that Fred can practice some of those maneuvers next time he takes his F-35 out from over on the other side of the state. I want to look, Colonel Shevchik, at the history of the Vermont Air Guard, started in 1946. Why was the unit started here in Vermont back then?
Honestly, that's something, Rick, that I would defer to our public affairs office to kind of take through, our history. We just celebrated our 75th anniversary where we were established and evolved right from the 134th Fighter Interceptor Squadron all the way to where we are today. So we have a long, proud history, and we just celebrated our 75th this year. Which is a big deal. We've flown 9 different aircraft, and we're proud to celebrate that long history, especially here at Burlington with our Burlington Airport partners. They're celebrating their 100th anniversary this year of celebrating and serving the community, and we're doing our 75th. So that's been a long partnership that we definitely value and appreciate here sharing this joint base.
I think that's a good history lesson. Incredible to know that 75 of the 100 years that Burlington International Airport has been there, the Vermont Air Guard has been there along with them. All right, let's get a sense of what the F-35 is all about. I know it was designed to be used by the different branches in the military. Give us an overview of its capabilities.
Well, in terms of its capabilities, Rick, it's kind of it's essentially a follow-on to legacy aircraft, or what we used to call fourth-gen aircraft, F-15s, F-16s, and the F-35 is considered a fifth-gen aircraft, like our F-22s, where it has stealth capabilities, some advanced technology, and that's to make it, quite frankly, more survivable. So it can survive in a more permissible environment to meet our near-peer and our peer-to-peer national security needs in the environment today.
And then compare it to the F-16, which it replaced, and how it's advanced the capabilities of the pilots who are flying it.
Well, I think this is one where I can comment more. I'm actually going to share this with Colonel Graber, if I could, too.
Absolutely.
Rick, as the Ops Group Commander.
Yeah, I think that the main advantage the F-35 has over the F-16 is something that we call fusion. I'm not going to say it's borderline artificial intelligence, but what it really does is it gathers so much information from the battle space and presents it to the pilot. And the main difference between how the F-35 does that and what was happening in the F-16 was the pilot in the F-16 would have to go out and grab that information, would have to have a button actuation or manipulate a sensor to go grab information from what the enemy is doing. In the F-35, that's all presented to you in a vast manner with a lot of information, and really gives us much more what we call situational awareness and knowing where not only where friendly aircraft and friendly assets are, but where the bad guys are in the sky as well. And it's a huge advantage. It's a complete game changer for us.
Colonel Graber, from flying the F-35 and from what you've heard from the other pilots, how has the performance been in these jets?
It's been fantastic. It's like any aircraft, there are some limitations that we're always seeking to improve, and we have a great process in place for that to happen with our active duty counterparts. But overall, it's been extremely well received, and I think, as Colonel Shevchik mentioned, The primary advantage we have is the survivability in this aircraft. So when you're talking about an individual pilot going up in a single-seat fighter jet, potentially into combat, that is, as you can well imagine, one of the things that's forefront on our minds is that it's a survivable airplane, not just one that's also lethal.
Colonel Shevchik, here we are in Vermont. We've got Canada at our border. So people might wonder why we need so much plane here in Vermont.
No, and that's a great question. A lot of it, the basing decisions that are made, Rick, really don't involve us at this level. We feel extremely proud and privileged to have been entrusted with this mission, with the extensive history that we have. And we're proud to be executing, and that's our responsibility right now, is to make sure that we are a ready F-35 fighter wing, to meet our federal mission needs, much like we've met our state mission needs for the past year and a half with the pandemic, which the team has been doing as well. So, that whole basing decision and process that's been extensive over the past 10 years, that's made at the Secretary of the Air Force, senior civilian and military leader levels, and we've been given this assignment, and that's one that we take seriously, and we're proud to do it.
And please take a moment to tell everyone about what you've done during the pandemic for the state of Vermont.
So, no, I appreciate that question. We've basically manned the strategic national stockpile to hand out all sorts of supplies. It started as early as last spring. We've built the alternate healthcare facility at the Expo Center in Essex to take care of both COVID and non-COVID patients. The team built that twice, actually. And then we've also given out, vaccines. We built over 180,000 vaccine kits. So the team's been very busy, and we appreciate the partnership that we've had with our state agencies to be able to support Vermont, our neighbors, our friends, our communities together, the best that we could.
Colonel Shevchik, what noise studies have been done regarding the F-35s here?
So that's a great question. Thanks, Rick. There's a couple that are upcoming. One is actually outlined in the EIS back from several years ago, that it says there will be a follow-up, because I think it's something that we're all interested in. We're interested in, we know our community is interested in, to assess the noise, because we obviously try to mitigate that as much as possible. And that environmental impact statement basically says, the EIS, that there will be a follow-up noise study, which we've contacted the National Guard Bureau to make sure that actually happens. We're waiting the timeline, but that is supposed to be contracted out by the end of this fiscal year. We're hoping that there's not COVID delays for it. So that's one noise study that we're anxiously anticipating. And then the other one is really in partnership with our Burlington Airport team, is a follow-up NEM, or noise exposure map analysis, that's going to be done from talking to them somewhere in the 2022 to 2023 time frame. So those are two noise studies that I think will give us some important data points that we want to know, and then I know the community does as well.
Another issue regarding noise, Colonel, that people were very concerned about was how often afterburners would be used, which does increase the noise level. So over these first 21 months, I know that it was supposed to be a minimum. How often have they been used?
So it's only been used once, and that's well under 1% in terms of all of our sorties in these, nearly 2 years. So the EIS, the environmental impact statement, says it'll be 5% or less, right. And we are well under that, and that's important, because that's one of our noise mitigation measures that we take very seriously, to try to do everything in our control to mitigate the impact to our communities, because we live and serve within these communities as well, and we understand that. So we do everything in our power, and that's just one of those things that we do.
What are the noise mitigation projects that you've instituted in the areas there around the airport, and what you do with your sorties?
So I appreciate that question as well. I'll kind of hit on these, and I'll let Colonel Graber kind of fill in as well from the operations standpoint. We've done several things. We've made a lot of changes in terms of our. We have a noise abatement procedure, a departure. So we climb as high as possible before making any turns. We've raised the traffic pattern by 500 feet as well. which is significant, to give that vertical separation as much as possible. We also, when we recover here to Burlington, since we have to take off and land from here, we recover to the highest possible altitude that weather allows. And what that means is, if on a nice day like today, we'll recover from as high an altitude as possible to try to have the least amount of impact. We've also actually modified our pattern as required when last fall we had to go to outside schools. We met with civic leaders, superintendents, and we try to adjust our pattern as much as possible. And we even tried to take community requests when able to meet certain specific events that they might have. An example is like the St. Michael's commencement ceremony and some high school graduations at the Expo Center. We've actually modified. So we try to engage with the community and mitigate as much as possible while still meeting our mission and training objectives. And I'll hand it over to Colonel Graber here for some fill-ins as well.
All right.
Yeah, just a couple more points, if you have a couple more seconds, Rick, is that we do try to avoid the UVM Medical Center as best we can when we come back in for our landings. That's typically when we're landing to the south here at the airport, and then also Winooski High School. But I guess in the big picture, we do read all the noise complaints, believe it or not. We see them all. They're tabulated, and we get to see what people are saying in the community. There's a lot of concern that we are purposely trying to fly louder on certain days, or the landing pattern is louder than on certain other days. So I just wanted to state unequivocally that we do not do that. We would not tolerate that in the professional pilot ranks that we have here to try to create more noise. So there are variances. I mean, almost all the noise is produced by the engine on the aircraft, and so there are times when we have to have higher power settings due to flight conditions on final, getting ready to land, etc. And that's probably what they're hearing, but by no means do we do it intentionally, and we are trying to be, like Colonel Shevchik said, the best neighbors that we absolutely can be.
Have the noise.
And one more other thing to pile on, Rick, is that we don't do pattern training here as well in the local area in Burlington. So we try to do that as much as possible off station. So when the planes do come back, it's to land, and we call it kind of one to a full stop, meaning you come in and you do your approach and you do a full landing, full stop landing. Any sort of training here is by exception only in the pattern.
One of the key reasons for attracting the F-35s to the Vermont Air National Guard base was the number of jobs that are created, having them here. What can you tell us about the number of jobs, the economic impact that having them based here in Burlington has on Vermont?
Sure. So, no, that's another great question. I appreciate it. So, in terms of the jobs, it's probably comparable on the military side. Our contractor employees has increased. Of our full-time jobs, we have over 400, and that totals more than $55 million annually in salary that folks are spending in and around our communities in our state. That includes our drill status team members. They come in, 1 weekend a month, or sometimes, weeks at a time for training, where they're staying at local hotels, dining, infrastructure, shops. So that's invested right back here. The other impact is from our contracting perspective. When we have needs here on base, just in FY20 alone, we spent $4.5 million in local business contracts. So we're trying to obviously give our contracts within the local community as much as possible. And then the other one is our fire and emergency services. They provide more than $3 million in mutual aid support just during FY20 alone. So they're responding on average, our fire department and emergency responders, almost once a day on average to not just the airport, but also the local communities within a 15-mile radius, which is significant as well.
Now, you mentioned others coming in. Didn't we just have some F-16s in the area this past weekend?
We did, and that's I appreciate you bringing that up. We work with Major Smith and our public affairs team at headquarters to make sure that we're transparent about when we have visitors and we have maybe things that are unexpected to our flying schedule. We kind of put that out in a press release, and they have been visiting, and they were here for a couple more days. They leave tomorrow after doing some integrated training, which is really important to link the the fourth generation, the fifth generation training.
Colonel Shevchik, I know this occurred before you became wing commander, but we do need to address it. A few years ago, the Air Guard came under heat for the Afterburner Club, some heavy drinking, mistreating of women. What has been done since then to make sure that that's all been corrected?
No, I appreciate it. That's another great question. We have no Afterburner Club. We have a heritage room. We have a Club 35 that's for all ranks. It's the only place on base that has a license to serve alcohol. And then we've had many diversity and inclusion initiatives to make sure that we assess our culture, and we have a culture that we're proud of. Even the Adjutant General, we have every member has to sign basically an agreement of their professional and ethical conduct. So we take it very seriously, and I think we've made a lot of progress. We have a chief of diversity and inclusion, so there's been many D&I initiatives where, quite frankly, I think our organization continues to pave the way and make strides forward, but it's a job that never gets done. We keep striving to make ourselves better and make our organization better.
Colonel Graber, you have about 45 seconds to give listeners an opportunity to know what it's like to fly an F-35.
Thanks so much. Nothing more than I like to talk about flying. So, like I said before, it's a lot like flying the F-16 in the way that it performs, but the sense of accomplishment we get from our mission, which we take a lot of pride in, which is something called suppression of enemy air defenses. It's a long way to say we go out there and try to take down enemy surface-to-air missiles, and so we're protecting the friendly forces when we go out there and kind of open the door for them to come into the battle space behind us. It's an exhilarating mission. It's also in combat would be a very dangerous mission, but we also take pride in being what we call the first in and the last out. But just to get with my last 10 seconds here, there's still nothing like being in a fighter jet and going out when the cumulonimbus clouds are building up and just go out there doing a little bit of cloud chasing. You feel like you're part machine, part bird out there, and it's nothing better.
Colonel Nathan Graber, Colonel David Shevchik, thanks for your service. Thanks for being on this morning.
Thank you very much, Rick. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, take care. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to open up the phones. Let's talk about all things summer. Ooh, it is summer. And then coming up later on WDEV at noon, we've got the governor's COVID-19 response news conference. This is Vermont Viewpoint on WDEV.
Let our staff at the Warren store ease you back into a pre-pandemic lifestyle. We can cater your postponed events and even bake you a custom cake. We can dress you in comfortable casual clothing. Make it a day trip for the best one-stop shopping in Vermont. Have lunch on our deck, head upstairs for some much-needed retail therapy, then treat yourself to a specialty coffee from our new espresso machine. You can pick up a colorful Warren store beach towel for a dip in the river, and how about a delicious house-made ice cream sandwich? Fun, funky, safe, and friendly. Warren Store, Main Street, Warren Village, and warrenstore.com.
Welcome back to Vermont Viewpoint. I'm Rick Singari. Okay, we've got some time for you to let off some steam, or you can tell us how you're spending these steamy summer days. We've got open phones until 10 o'clock, 244-1777. Toll free, it's 877-291-8255. Boy, I'd love to hear how you're spending the start of your summer, maybe a summer read you've cracked open. Tips on great places to keep absolutely cool as we're all working up a sweat. And if it's your home pool, give me an address. Also, now that events are being held again, any musical performances that you're going to attend, or do you want to relive some from summers past? Let us know, 244-1777, 877-291-8255. I'm going to be off Thursday and Friday of this week. I'm going to make my first trek outside the state since last March. First time I'll be outside of Vermont since last March. I'm going to be heading to Boston, see the Sox. They have that day game Thursday against the Royals. Of course, now it looks like some rain, but we'll see what happens. So, and Sox fans, 6 straight against the Yankees. Are you kidding me? What are your thoughts about that? Yankees fans, 6 straight against the Sox. What are your thoughts? Let us know. 244-1777. 877-291-8255. You can also email vtviewpoint@radiovermont.com. Yeah, I've got to say, the Yankee fans can't. I have friends who are Yankees fans, and they are not pleased right now. There's some real upset on that side of the Yankee-Red Sox divide, and I understand. They look like a very average team in so many games, and I'm wondering when a managerial change is going to come. Granted, they've had injuries, and that's going to be part of it. But for a team that really was expected to dominate the AL, if not the AL East, they're way back there right now. So, and very average, nearing 500 again as they keep dropping ball games. They lost to the Angels last night. So, Red Sox Thursday for me. That'll be quite an adventure. I always take the red line from out at Alewife and head on in. So mass transit for the first time. Being in a stadium with, I don't know how many fans will be there on a Thursday afternoon, but let's say 30,000 people. It's going to be quite an adventure. All right, let's head to Middlesex. We've got Ron joining us. Hi, Ron.
Yeah, hi. On Father's Day, I called you, but we ran out of time.
You're my rail fan. You're the rail fan.
Yes.
All right, good. Correct. I'm glad you're calling back.
All right. So anyway, my father would take me when I was 5, 6 years old down to Harmon, New York, and that's where the New York Central used to change from electric trains to diesel or steam. And one day they had one of the big name trains was pulling out. They had put a steam engine on. If anyone knows steam, the big Niagara 484. And trains, in those days, the name trains had 15, 16, 20 cars on them. It was near 4th of July. And he put me up on his shoulder next to the cab so I could see the engineer, to see him, run the throttle. Mm-hmm. These engines, for anyone that remembers steam, these big engines have a booster engine, and this one had what's under the rear trucks of the engine, which we were standing right next to because we were next to the cab, and we didn't know. And it was heavy train, so the engineer hit the booster engine, and we were right next to a big noise. I was lucky my father didn't just drop me off his shoulder, but also I sort of jumped. I always remember that with my father. That was, I don't know if it was Father's Day or not, but anyhow, that's what I remember. Well, so that's my story.
Well, Ron, even though that was a pretty scary moment there, did it make you more of a rail fan or less? Did you remain?
Oh, I'm a long-term rail fan.
Oh, I love to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, long-term rail fan and a long-term steam fan, even though steam is sort of out now. Right. That's all right. Diesels are good, too.
Yep.
Anyhow, those are nice memories.
Yeah, they are
good
great.
Good talking to you.
Hey, thanks for calling back. It's great to hear from you.
Right. Take care. Right, bye.
All right. Yeah, I think it was a week ago that we had open phones. God, had to cut Ron off right at the end of open phones, and I'm glad he persevered and gave us a call back. Karen's next in Hardwick. Hi, Karen. Go right ahead.
Hi. I was wondering if anybody saw that program last night about Agent Orange.
I didn't, but please tell us about it.
Well, it went through the whole thing about using it in Vietnam.
Right.
When they cut it off in Vietnam, they were using it here on all the cut-over woodland.
Now,
anyway,
Agent Orange was what, a pesticide of some sort, or
herbicide?
It was a herbicide. Okay.
But it occurs to me that we're doing something similar now with the effluent from the landfill in Coventry.
Ah.
We're trucking this stuff all up and down the state, tanker load after tanker load, putting it into the Montpelier and Barrie sewer systems. They can't clean it. Nobody knows what's in it. And then it goes into Lake Champlain.
So the effluent from Coventry, the only landfill, the only active landfill, really statewide landfill left in Vermont, you're saying the effluent is being trucked to the sewer systems of Montpelier and where else?
And Barrie, and I think there's one other. They were putting it into the Newport sewer system until Canada put a stop to it.
Because of shared Lake Memphremagog.
Right. But not only is it a horrible toxin, but it's tearing up our roads with these tankers every day. 2 or 3 tankers go through Hardwick.
To say nothing of all the trash that's being taken up to Coventry from all parts
out
of the
state. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
and the powers that be, I mean, Julie Moore will get right on the defensive and say, well, it's been approved and the sewage treatment plants want it. But it's not up to them. It's up to us. The people are drinking that water out of Lake Champlain. And we go about our business like nothing's happening.
It's definitely something, to investigate and to look further into. When you've brought this up, I would imagine you've kind of brought it up to legislators, and has there been any response?
There's no point. They're brain dead or indifferent. I mean, I've been fighting battles for years, and the guy with the money always wins. But it's the people. I mean, I'm in Hardwick with my own little water supply. I'm fine. It's the people who are drinking this stuff that have to get up on their hind legs.
Yeah, this is an excellent point. The other problem we have is when there are moves made to, for instance, have us stop using plastic bags, or to go to statewide recycling and composting, which we've gone to, but there's always that pushback. But if we don't do those things, then where does that wind up? It winds up in Coventry, correct?
Right, and it's making gas that they have to burn off,
right,
which could be used to desiccate this effluent and put it back into the landfill. But it's evidently cheaper or more convenient to truck it across the state.
Well, cost does tend to come into a lot of this, and are we willing to pay, all of us, because it's on us, right? Each of us as a taxpayer, to assume that cost. And, we've got to look hard at what we're doing, whether it's energy usage or, the way we, get rid of the waste that we have. These are items that, it's like that, hair shirt, do we want to wear it, for the good of the planet, for the good of all of us? Karen, you bring up excellent points. I don't know
if you get a chance, take a look at that Agent Orange program. It was on PBS last night.
Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Great.
Bye-bye.
I appreciate your call. Thanks, Karen. We took a trip to Shelburne Museum yesterday. You can share what you enjoy most about that place when you visit it, the museum there, or you can recommend another place to visit in Vermont, or outside Vermont, because, hey, we're vaxxing like a boss in this state, and we're allowed to roam. So, if there's a place, outside the border, I guess not outside the U.S. border, but outside our state borders, you can let us know about that too. Best summer vacation or summer concert you've ever attended? Let us know. 244-1777, 877-291-8255. You can also email vtviewpoint@radiovermont.com. Charlie's in his car. He's calling us. Charlie, be safe. What do you got for us today?
Well, I'm a Habs fan, and listening to you guys, I wouldn't even know they were in the Stanley Cup final.
Oh, Charlie, what a season. All right.
I don't listen to you guys 24 hours a day, but I know you're Beaner fans, but I haven't heard you mention the Habs.
Well, I mean, we give the scores. Don't shortchange our sports, but you're so right. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about this season with UVM's Dominic Ducharme there as the head coach after, a decent start under Claude Julien, and then they tanked, and they bring this guy in as a, interim coach. And again, he kind of, the first few games, not so great. And then whatever he did, Charlie, you got to really love this.
I love it. There's a lot of Vermont Habs fans.
Yep.
And I think we should be talking about it. They did get beat pretty bad last night.
Right. 5-1 last night in the first game.
Before. I think they're peaking, and the hockey gods are on their side, and I hope it would be wonderful if they made it all the way.
Well, when they start off the playoffs beating Toronto, you know, you got to believe that's a darn good sign, right?
Yeah.
Now, are you from Canada originally, Charlie?
No, I'm from Franklin County, but they're my home team.
Yeah, they are. It's great to just shoot right up and see them, and it's been so long since a Canadian team. Well, I guess it was them. No, it was the Canucks made it.
I think was the last one.
That won, but the Canucks were the last one, I think, from Canada in the finals. And what's kind of wonderful is when you're in Canada during the Stanley Cup playoffs, they do pull for whatever Canadian team is left, right? They want to see, you know, one of their teams win it. All right, who are the players you really have been impressed by on this Habs team this year?
Oh man, it's been all of them. They're a team, and that's what's wonderful about it. Of course, they got great goaltending.
Yeah,
and it's just a lot of fun to watch. And it's been a long time, and I just hope you talk about it a little more.
Well, a few years ago when Carey Price was injured and then came back, and you know, you thought, oh man, that 8-year, I think it was an 8-year salary, you know, the Habs could be saddled with that for a while, and he's just a great goaltender and has shown it, you know, especially during this playoff run.
Yeah, it's incredible. Nothing easy has gotten by him, that's for sure.
All right, let's go Habs. Let's see them bounce back.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much, Charlie. All right, Duxbury next. We've got Dee. Hi, Dee. Go right ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to mention that my husband and I watch baseball, the Mountaineers.
Yes.
In Montpelier. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and Dee, please let people know exactly what that's like to go to a ball game there at the rec field in Montpelier.
Well, they're all college students. It's
Yep.
a college league, right?
Yep.
And
Yes,
it's just, you're right there. The players are right there. And I've been to Major League Baseball over the years, but this is so cool. And it's baseball.
Yeah.
You know? You got your bat, you got your balls, you got your bases.
And players who
so
just are out there playing for the love of the sport.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And I'd advise anybody who's interested in baseball to go.
How many games a year do you get to down there?
Oh, they play through June and July, so I'm not sure. They play in Montpelier, and they play away.
Yeah. Now, do you tend to sit up in the stands, or do you take your folding chairs, your lawn chairs, and sit down the baselines?
Well, I use a wheelchair, so.
Okay.
But everybody else, we have our BB, our baseball buddies, right? And so my husband's there, and then some friends, and it's just along the third baseline. It's great, but there are stands. I mean, people sit up in the stands. There are hot dogs. I mean, you know.
It's a great time. It's real old-time baseball that you can still see in 2021. Pretty great. I have to ask, are you a Red Sox or Yankees fan in the majors?
You know, we lived in Philadelphia for about 3 years, and so we switched over to Phillies.
All right.
But my husband grew up in Baltimore as a kid watching Orioles, so... Yeah, we're kind of all over the map, you might say.
All right. I'm from around Philly originally, too, and I still have that loyalty for the Phils. So.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much for calling in. That's
You're
great
welcome.
to hear. All right. Yeah. If you haven't seen Mountaineers baseball, it is really, it's summer. It's pure summer. It's what you remember, old-time baseball. And Jack is joining us from Moscow. Hey, Jack.
Hey, Rick. Yeah, I got a best concert ever for you.
Yeah,
it was Ray Price, the great country singer, who started out as a player in Hank Williams' band and then broke out on his own. And he performed with Willie Nelson. He also gave Willie Nelson his start as a bass player originally.
Oh, my.
And Merle Haggard at the Champlain Valley Fairgrounds. And it was like imagine if Elvis had taken care of himself. He was in his 80s. His voice was strong as could be. And it was the best thing I've ever seen in Vermont. And coming up a quick second, which I say because I know you're from Philly, was the pop song master Todd Rundgren's summer camp up at the Trapp Family Lodge. Spent a whole week up there. If you were a fan, it was something great to see. Thank you, Rick.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Todd at the Trapp Family Lodge. Ray Price, along with Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard at the Champlain Valley Expo. Had to be absolutely heaven. And then Todd Rundgren up at the Traps. That's fabulous. Thanks so much, Jack.
You're welcome, Rick.
I'm going to merge music and baseball now while we have just a couple minutes. So Todd Rundgren, who had a great solo career and also with the band Utopia, his son, baseball player, top prospect he was with the Marlins. I don't know where he wound up, but he came up through the Marlins organization. And Todd used to go see him play. And here's this kind of rock and roll god, and he'd be sitting there in the stands, and the kids that his son was playing with were so young, had no idea who Todd Rundgren was. So it's kind of funny, that there he was, and they're like, yeah, there's so-and-so's dad, Todd. All right, let's get one more call in. We got Lee joining us from Northfield. Lee, go right ahead.
Oh, good morning, Rick. I just wanted to put out there for folks that are looking for ways to stay cool and enjoy what's in Vermont.
Yes.
My husband and I just yesterday got the Vermont Park Pass for people who are 62 and older. $2 lifetime for, I think, all the state parks and a large number of Vermont historical sites.
Oh my gosh! Wow, tell us again.
Yeah, so any Vermonter can go to who's 62 can go to their town clerk, fill out the paper. The town clerk has the pass, and it's good for life for $2.
Oh, that's brilliant, Lee. I love it. And coming up at 10:30 this morning, we're going to be talking to Nate McKean from Vermont State Park. So we're going to find out all about some of the great state parks here in Vermont.
Terrific.
But yeah,
a great segue.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. It's almost like I said, hey, Lee, call me about this. But you're so right. We have so much within, what's a little state, but it covers a lot of ground, and you can get around and see some amazing things and visit some great state parks. So, that's great to hear. And, that pass, go to your town clerk. Tell him Lee sent you from Northfield.
Yes, tell them Lee sent you. Right. Have a good day.
Thank you, Lee. All right, Danny, that was a good, fun half hour of open phones, but that's enough for now. We're going to pick it up again maybe tomorrow. We'll see what happens. We're going to head out now for a few minutes of the CBS News update, and then after the news, we're going to talk soccer. We're going to get a good look at Euro 2020, which is taking place all over the continent right now, and sending fans into raptures. Some great soccer being played. And a reminder, today at 1 o'clock on WDEV, we've got Equal Time with Travin, and then a couple hours of the getaway with Greg Hooker. This is Vermont Viewpoint on WDEV.
Let our staff at the Warren store ease you back into a pre-pandemic lifestyle. We can cater your postponed events and even bake you a custom cake. We can dress you in comfortable casual clothing. Make it a day trip for the best one-stop shopping in Vermont. Have lunch on our deck, head upstairs for some much-needed retail therapy, then treat yourself to a specialty coffee from our new espresso machine. You can pick up a colorful Warren store beach towel for a dip in the river, and how about a delicious house-made ice cream sandwich? Fun, funky, safe, and friendly. Warren Store, Main Street, Warren Village, and warrenstore.com.
This is Vermont Viewpoint on WDEV. If you live anywhere near a soccer fan, for the past couple of weeks, you might have noticed a serious uptick in yelling, cheering, and the occasional swearing coming from their homes. Yes, the English Premier League, the German Bundesliga, and the other top European club competitions and cups have finished for the year. But there's a competition going on that, while not quite the World Cup, it's the next best thing. It's Euro 2020, maybe the best thing about 2020, and it figures, of course, that it's taking place in 2021. Joining me to discuss what's been happening at stadia all across Europe is a soccer expert and one of the coaches at Far Post Soccer Club, Henry Sengel. Henry, welcome to Vermont Viewpoint.
Hey, Rick. How you doing?
Great to have you. Listeners, to ask Henry a question about Euro 2020 or to let us know what country has impressed you so far, you can give us a call, 244-1777. 877-291-8255. You can email vtviewpoint@radiovermont.com. So, Henry, give people an idea what the Euros are all about.
Right. So it is an international tournament. So players obviously play for clubs and franchises throughout the year, and then every once in a while get together and play with their national team. And this is just within Europe. It is a competitive single elimination tournament that goes on every 4 years and is staggered to be 2 years before and after the World Cup.
Except the crazy pandemic year, it was supposed to be 2020. They still call it Euro 2020, even though it's being held in 2021. And fear not, the World Cup will be held next year. How close, Henry, would you rate this competition to the World Cup?
It's right up there with it. The World Cup is obviously the biggest competition, but this is taken very seriously, and all the players are completely committed, and it's a really, really high level all around.
One of the difficult things about the pandemic's effect on soccer has been condensed schedules between club competitions, World Cup qualifying, other competitions. It seemed evident at the end of the European domestic seasons that there was an effect, all that condensed scheduling. Have you noticed much during the Euros?
There's definitely some of that. All of these players are playing at a ridiculously high level and very often. And there has been a huge uptick in injuries this season. But there's also, on the other hand, all of the club competition for this season has mostly been played behind closed doors because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So these players have been playing in empty stadiums, and that definitely has had an effect on the play and the exhaustion level. And at this tournament, there have been crowds, varying capacities, but there's been an effect as well, despite these players being probably exhausted from a long season. The effect of, 30,000 fans right there screaming at you after a year of missing that, the energy level has been really surprisingly high, and it's noticeably different than the last few months of soccer that I've been watching.
And that energy level has kind of manifested itself. I'm thinking of the Croatia-Spain game where Spain had a nice, comfortable 3-1 lead. Croatia came storming back. Yesterday's France and Switzerland match, same type of thing. No one seems out of it because, like you say, they do get energized to a level now that we haven't seen since the fans, went away.
Yeah, definitely. And there's always, that's why we love soccer. It's goals can happen in the blink of an eye, so you're always in it.
There's a couple other things that FIFA has, or I guess UEFA in this case, have instituted, and we've seen it kind of off and on through some of the club competitions, but has certainly helped in maintaining the fitness of the players, of keeping up that level, and that is extra substitutions and those hydration breaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's also been interesting. I don't remember exactly the 2020 European Championships were set to be hosted. Do you remember who was planning to be hosting it?
It was just, I think summer? It was a shared, this is a great question. I should have researched because right now they're all over the continent.
Exactly.
And the original, I think, might have been in the UK or a combination of, Scotland and Ukraine or something. Mm-hmm. But this has been set all across the continent. Now, some of the countries have been able to play, 3 home matches, while others have been zipping across the continent, playing here, there, and other. So I've wondered how much of an effect that has had on these countries playing.
Yeah, it must. It's a lot of travel. But then also just going back to They're, sometimes they'll take, a safety water break sort of thing. But yeah, like the game earlier this week, I guess it was France. I forget.
Yeah, Portugal. No, France played. I'm sorry. Portugal was 1-0 loss to Belgium.
Yes, Belgium. Yeah. That was in Seville, I think, which was blisteringly hot, and then you'll have another game in like Denmark or something the next day. So it's definitely it's an odd experience of just jumping all around Europe for each game.
Now, one effect of possibly this condensed amount of matches that have been played has been the Christian Eriksen situation, a player from Denmark.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that, Henry.
Oh, that was a surreal thing to watch. Christian Eriksen is a really, really talented player. He played in England for years. He plays in Italy right now. And early on in the first match of the tournament, he inexplicably collapsed in the middle of the field. And sort of everyone was very confused and not sure what was happening. And he was having, I guess, a cardiac, a heart attack, essentially. And it was a weird thing to be televised. They were doing CPR on the field, right. And all it was just a really wild experience for everyone watching, for all the players on the field, just a depressing way to start the tournament. But he did recover,
yep.
And his heart did stop on the field, which is something that is pretty terrifying. But he survived and is healthy, was conscious, and sending messages to his teammates later that day. But it definitely put a lot of it into perspective right off the bat, and maybe has contributed to all the players being, a next level of being grateful for being able to play, and maybe has added to the level of the tournament. But
well, they did suspend that match after that happened, came back and finished it later that day. Denmark winds up losing to Finland. But Denmark has now, they got out of their group stage, and then the other day they were playing against Wales, had an incredible 4-0 win against Wales, right? And so you might not remember this, but you might have gone back and seen Euro 92. Back then, Denmark they were not one of the eight teams got in, 8 countries. They didn't qualify, but Yugoslavia was disqualified as a result of a breakup of the country. There was ensuing warfare, and so they brought Denmark back in. They were, the 9th team really to qualify for an 8-team field. Red Dynamite wins Euro 92. So, you seeing any of that magic possibly from Denmark? They've got, Czech Republic up next, which you're going to be a real powerhouse to get by, to advance to the semifinals.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's possible. I think it was 2004 that Greece won the European Championship, and they were not a very good team, to be honest. They sat back and defended very well and snatched a goal. And I think it's really interesting to see the Denmark team play, because Eriksen was their focal point. Mm-hmm. He is a very talented center midfielder who controls everything. And so they've changed their formation, they've changed their tactics, like on the fly in the middle of games, and opponents who haven't had all of that much time to have prepared for dealing with him. And without him there, it's a completely different team, and it's clearly taken some other teams off guard. And yeah, anything's possible. They're definitely playing really inspired soccer.
What has been your assessment of the overall play and competitiveness of the matches at Euro 2020 so far?
I've been impressed. It's been awesome. Yeah. And I mean, I'll come back to just fans being in the stadium. It's a big difference being able to hear the crowd in the background, the environment, and you see it affect the players, like really, really noticeably. And yeah, it's been a really high level, especially watching international teams play, it can be a little sloppy because these players play all over the world for their club teams, and they come together just, for a weekend here and there to practice with each other. So like the amount of cohesion and team chemistry can really be a toss-up. But we've seen the entertaining type of team cohesion of great attacking soccer, and some nice defensive mistakes for our entertainment.
Yeah. Quite often, some of these soccer minnows, these no-hopers, will kind of hunker down and play some very unattractive soccer to slow things down, hoping for that one-off goal. We've seen so little of that during Euro 2020, and it's really been entertaining for everyone who's watching. Henry, let's go back to those group stages. Coming out of those group stages, what sides, what countries impressed you the most?
Good question. There are a lot of really, really strong teams that looked really good. The easiest answer is France, who I think is everybody's favorite for the tournament overall. They won the last World Cup. They made it to the finals and probably should have won the last European Cup. And they only looked stronger coming into this tournament, and they played very well in the group stages with a little slight slip-ups, but looked really good. And they've obviously now been eliminated by Switzerland, which was a wild game, and nobody saw that coming. So it's really wide open right now. I think some of the front runners are definitely Belgium and England. Belgium, on paper, might be the best team in the world. I think they were technically number one ranked coming into this, but they haven't won a large tournament in my lifetime, for sure.
Right.
And then England is really in a similar boat of, on paper, could easily be the best team in the world, but have not won a single thing since the 60s. So it's a real opportunity now that France is out. And then Italy, I was really, really impressed with. They have been a pretty underwhelming team. They won the World Cup in 2006, and they won that tournament with a really aging team, and since then have sort of not been impressive. They failed to qualify. I think it was the last European Championship. They've been okay, but in the last year or so, they have put together a pretty unbelievable unbeaten streak and have been really pragmatic. They've always been known as a really defensive team that takes their opportunities, and they've found pretty impressive team cohesion and squeezed out an overtime win to make it here to the quarterfinals.
That was probably their biggest struggle was against Austria in that 2-1 win. Austria did find a way to keep Italy in check, but eventually Italy did persevere. So, coming out of the group stages, definitely Italy was one of the more impressive. It's great to see, the Dutch, the Czechs, and the Swiss. Like I said, these soccer minnows, can they sustain it?
Not the Dutch.
I'm sorry. The Danes.
Yeah, the
Dutch went out to the Czechs. You're right, the Danes.
Exactly. There's no reason why not. And that's the beauty of soccer is, you can win a game 1-0. You can win a game 0-0 if it goes to penalties. And we've seen it. So if they have enough gas left in the tank, especially with these teams that are left, I think Belgium is the last true powerhouse. I think you can't play against the Belgium team and not give up a goal.
Mm-hmm.
But Italy, Spain, England, it's doable. It's definitely possible to hold out and squeeze out a narrow victory. I think, especially seeing as later today or in the next round, is it Czech Republic, Denmark?
It is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, so one of them is guaranteed to make it to the semis. So it's
exactly. And if England makes it that far, that's who they would get. So, England has to get past talk about the Germans. This is a team that, has dominated, a lot in world soccer. They're kind of limping along right now. They've made it in, to the, round of 16. They get England. But this German side does not look like, the wonderful German sides of years past.
Yeah, they're in a bit of a weird situation. They won the World Cup in 2014 and have a lot of those same players and only a few really good young players who have come up and sort of taken that next generation. They also have had a coach, Jürgen Loh, for quite a while now, and he announced that he'll be leaving the national team after this tournament. Sort of an odd decision.
Yep.
It psychologically makes it a little strange for the players who know that this won't be their manager after this tournament. So they've looked a little disjointed, but they also are still incredibly dangerous, with some ridiculously talented players. And on the big stage, obviously it's noon today, they play against England, which is just an awesome rivalry. And England are notorious for choking, really.
Yeah. I don't know if that German coaching announcement is a German thing. My team in Germany is Borussia Mönchengladbach, and their coach announced about halfway through the season that the next season he's going to join a different team in the league, in the Bundesliga, and they tanked from that point forward.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so let's talk about England. Their keepers, Jordan Pickford, we know him well, you and I, because we're both fans of Everton in England, and he's played spectacularly, but somehow he gets trashed by fans all the time.
Yeah, I think he has been getting some credit during this tournament. He has been fantastic, and he's deserved a lot of the shtick he's gotten. To be honest, I'm a pretty harsh fan of our team, but he has been very up and down over the last couple of seasons, and for England, who obviously is thinks of their national team very, very highly, it's understandable to want, a goalie who is very, very solid. But over the last 5 months or so, it was the last Liverpool derby when he turned a corner, and he's been phenomenal. He's been a really good shot stopper and really good distributing the ball. I've been happy. Usually I'm watching him play on the edge of my seat, but I've been really impressed, which is great to see.
And Henry alluded to England last winning in the 60s. The 1966 World Cup final at Wembley was the last time England has taken the glory. They've got Germany today, which could be tough, but then they get the winner of Sweden, Ukraine, and then the winner of Czech Denmark. Could be a nice path for them to the final, Henry.
Yeah, it's there to be taken. But I mean, at the same time, in the last World Cup in Russia, they made it to the semifinals and played against Croatia, who is a good team, but they should not have, on paper, should not have been as good as the English, and the Croatians beat them. So it's really, I think it's psychological at this point for England, but it's there to be taken if they can put it together.
Now, I want to ask you a little bit about your coaching. What's the team that you coach at Far Post?
I coach the 09 boys premier team, which is 12-year-olds.
All right. And how did things go this season with them?
It was okay. It was definitely a weird year. So the structure of our year with youth soccer is tryouts will be in the summer, and then you'll train outside and have some scrimmages during the fall, and then play indoor all winter, and then come outside for the spring. And obviously COVID made all of that very difficult. So we had plenty of Zoom practices and socially distanced practices, and the kids only got to take their masks off a couple of weeks ago, if that. So so definitely some weird aspects to it. That's we made it through though, and it was fun. So actually, I coached tonight. I've got practice, and then we have one final tournament.
Oh.
And then the season's over.
All right. Well, good luck.
But it's been a lot of fun. Yeah. It's been
Yes.
a good distraction for them, I think, for obviously a very weird year.
All right. We've got a minute left. I want to know your predictions for today's matches, and then who do we see in the finals?
All right. I think England is going to beat Germany at Wembley. And then Sweden, Ukraine, man. Oof. I'm going to go with Ukraine. And for the finals, I see Belgium winning if Kevin De Bruyne can play. Picked up an ankle injury yesterday or the day before or something. But yeah, Belgium, England in the finals. I'm not sure if that actually works out with the bracket. But
It does.
My guess.
It does.
Okay, good.
and we think alike. I should have known that we would have probably picked the same England, Belgium for the final. And I think that's where Belgium does finally show their class. They have a great side, and like you said, especially if Kevin De Bruyne plays, great player from Manchester City in England, and he really makes the difference linking up there with former Evertonian Lukaku. So, Henry Sengel played soccer for CVU and Far Post Soccer Club, now coaches at the club, and he's taught me half of everything I know about the sport. Henry, thanks so much for being on the show. Come on, you Blues, go Everton.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, take care. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to get a tour, a really great tour of Vermont State's parks right after the news. This is Vermont Viewpoint on WDEV.
Let our staff at the Warren store ease you back into a pre-pandemic lifestyle. We can cater your postponed events and even bake you a custom cake. We can dress you in comfortable casual clothing. Make it a day trip for the best one-stop shopping in Vermont. Have lunch on our deck, head upstairs for some much-needed retail therapy, then treat yourself to a specialty coffee from our new espresso machine. You can pick up a colorful Warren store beach towel for a dip in the river, and how about a delicious house-made ice cream sandwich? Fun, funky, safe, and friendly. Warren Store, Main Street, Warren Village, and warrenstore.com.
This is Vermont Viewpoint on WDEV. Vermont itself is like one giant state park to begin with, but to have such a robust state park system just adds to the pleasure of living and visiting here. And it's been a real treat to see that during the pandemic, Vermonters have embraced our outdoor offerings. So let's get a good idea of what our state parks have to offer as we really get back out and start enjoying Vermont again. Here to serve as our guide is Nate McKean. He's the director of Vermont State Parks. Nate, welcome to Vermont Viewpoint.
Hello, Rick. Thank you very much.
Hello, yeah, you're welcome. And listeners, if you have a question about our state parks or you want to share a favorite, give us a call, 244-1777, 877-291-8255. You can also email vtviewpoint@radiovermont.com. Nate, how many state parks do we have here in Vermont?
Boy, we have a wide variety of state parks. We have 55 parks that are a little more on the developed side, where we have staff and we have tend to charge a fee during the operating season, but they're spread out all around the state, and we like to say that nobody's within more than a half an hour drive from a state park, no matter where you are or where you live.
55, that's incredible. When did Vermont State Park System get started, and why?
The Vermont State Park System began in 1924 with the establishment of Mount Philo State Park, and that's one of our most popular day-use parks, and it's terrific for hiking. And we have a campground there too, and the views are fantastic. And the Vermont State Park System got started as recreation, outdoor recreation began to get established in the early part of the century, and it's slowly grown from there. But it's all about preserving and conserving and interpreting the outdoor spaces in Vermont while providing high quality recreation, and that certainly has evolved over the years. How folks view recreation and the type of things that they like to do.
Well, you've got a few years to get ready for the 100th anniversary of Vermont State Parks. That should be exciting. Do you remember the first Vermont State Park that you visited?
Yes, I do. I actually first visited Little River State Park right there in Waterbury.
Yeah.
When I moved to Vermont and became the park manager there, actually in the 90s. So that park is near and dear to my heart and experience, and it's one of the greatest state parks in the country, I feel, there in Waterbury, because there's so much that it offers. And
please tell people about it. Sell that one. That is a great state park.
I mean, what more could you want with 800-acre Waterbury Reservoir right there? There's camping, there's great boating and swimming at Waterbury Center State Park. And then up at Little River State Park, the campground is just phenomenal. The sites are nicely spaced, and you get to have a private feel, but there's a lot of amenities right there. And it backs up against the 34,000-acre Mount Mansfield State Forest, which offers a lot of things, obviously, in its own right, including terrific hiking. We have now a very popular mountain bike trail there. There's a whole history hike up there out of Little River, where there's an old settlement with remnants, and there's a nice interpretive path that walks up that leads up around that settlement. I mean, anything that you really want to do, you can find it right there at Little River, and it's only it's just outside of Waterbury. It's a little bit of a drive up there, but once you get there, you feel like you're on a whole nother place.
Yeah, great recommendation. Thanks for that, Nate. I do love that, and that old settlement was really phenomenal to go and find. How about if I want to catch some fish? Where are you going to take me? What state park? And it can be several.
Well, of course, we have a lot of terrific fishing, and the Waterbury Reservoir is such a deep body of water. It's great for the the brook trout, and Molly's Falls Pond out on Route 2, headed out of Montpelier, is a popular fishing spot. We have fly fishing only at Sayon Lodge out in the Groton State Forest. And, I will say that from Waterbury, and I know your listening area is very broad, but you have the Groton State Forest within striking distance, and once you get out into that forest, it's kind of like Little River. You can find anything that you want to do in the parks out there, including fishing at Lake Groton. And the Connecticut River is fantastic fishing. And I'd like to take a minute to just mention our website, vtstateparks.com. And we have a fantastic website. It's managed by Rochelle and Caitlin. They do a fantastic job of keeping it up to date. And you just type in the type of activity you're looking for, say fishing, for example, and the general geographic area you're looking at. And there's some great recommendations on our website for hiking, fishing, boating, all the activities you could be looking for.
All right, and that's vtstateparks.com again. I noticed, Nate, that state park attendance was down last year from 2019 by about a quarter. Were the parks closed for some of the time last year? Did that have an effect?
Yeah, as you can imagine, there was a lot of unknowns from March up until the traditional park opening in mid-May for many of our parks, about the pandemic and what it meant for all of us. And in the end, parks really didn't open officially until late June. So we had a late start, and even still working through the summer months, there was still some unknowns. So we took extreme caution with our disinfecting and our cleaning and our practices. But fortunately, we were able to open up the parks, and we didn't have our full offerings. Like we blocked off some campsites and all that other stuff that we've lived over the last year. But once we opened, people flocked to the parks, and we really understood what an important decision that was to open, and all the hard work and planning that went into being able to open them was very well worth it. So our attendance was down, but as far as Vermonters go, factoring in the late start and that out-of-staters weren't really coming,
right?
We really hit some attendance records, actually, for Vermonters.
Oh, that's great to hear. So what's the situation this year? Any protocols when attending state parks?
We are fully open and very happy that we are. We've been following the emergency order before it was lifted, and the governor's, the recommendations outlined in the governor's weekly press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
And so when, at this point, all of our facilities are open. We have a couple shelters and a few of the nature centers that we're slowly bringing back up to speed. But we don't really have any restrictions other than please be, considerate of others and who are wearing a mask and that who feel they need to stay socially distanced, and be kind to each other and to the staff.
Yeah. Now I'm going to hop in the car, Nate. I'm going to head to the Kingdom. So why don't you suggest a state park or two for me to check out?
Well, if you don't stop in the Groton State Forest along the way, up there we have Crystal Lake in Barton, which is just a gorgeous spot, terrific swimming, and a great place to go that's probably not going to be overly crowded. Maidstone Lake, the campground up there, once you get there, it's phenomenal, and that lake is so popular and such a nice feature. I swam there many times and camped there. And then Brighton State Park and Island Pond is extremely popular for camping and for day use and swimming. So those are the three parks that I would direct folks toward going in that direction.
All right, sounds great. Nate, are the state parks, do they tend to be seasonal?
Yes, they tend to be seasonal in terms of full operation. Of course, our state parks are open for dispersed recreation year-round. There's a lot of great winter activities that happen too. But we staff them pretty much early May to mid to late October for many of them. Little River, for example, stays open into late October. And on our website, we have all of our operating schedules for each state park. And you mentioned the pass giveaway.
Yeah.
I will say that our pass sales this year are on a record pace. So folks are really taking advantage of that pass option. You can buy those right from our website. And it's a fantastic deal, and we're real happy that Vermonters are really purchasing those at a high rate.
Love to hear that. VTStateParks.com, again, the website where you can go to find that. Who are the people who staff your state parks?
Well, I think our parks are true gems to Vermont, and along with that, I think our seasonal staff and our park managers that operate those 55 state parks are a true gift to Vermont too. In many ways, one, working in a Vermont State Park is kind of a rite of passage for many people. You run into so many people around the state that have worked at a state park or have family that has worked at a state park. And then we also are able to attract employees from all over the country, down south, the Southwest, out west, Canada, and it's really adds a lot of diversity to the state and to our operations. Those folks coming in from all over the country, and they all work so hard. It's a fantastic job. Our retention rate is quite high. So when folks do get a season under the belt and start working for us, they tend to come back. It's a great track for a high school student. When I was working at Little River, we had a number of students from Waterbury who were fantastic employees. So our retention rate is high. That said, we always do have openings. We have openings right now at Little River. So check out our website, and we have a very up-to-date employment page there. If you're looking for a part-time job or know somebody who is looking for a seasonal work.
What are the camping opportunities at the state parks? And if someone wanted to, how would they, or do they need to reserve a spot to camp?
Great question. For such a small state, we have one of the highest numbers of actual campsites in the state park system from around the country. So we have 2,200 campsites, and many of those are traditional tent sites. We also have lean-tos, three-sided shelters, which are great to help with camping. Then we have cottages and quite a few cabins and a few cottages. Mm-hmm. So really, whatever you're looking for, we pretty much have it to offer. The question of our parks always full. We are busy on the weekends, particularly this time of year. But on our website, we have a new reservation system where you can actually check availability by clicking the date you're interested in, and it'll show you what parks still have availability. So we still encourage folks to, on a whim, go camping, particularly midweek. But even on weekends, you can get up-to-date information on what's still available around the state. But we have mountaintop parks, like down at Woodford, down near Bennington, quaint little getaway parks like Alice State Park in Brookfield, and then just, like I said, Little River or Elmore up north out of Montpelier. Waterfront sites, just kind of type in at the website what you're looking for, a little more off the beaten path, quiet, or where there's a lot of action taking place. And it's pretty impressive what Vermont has to offer for campsites.
Nate, can you take us to a state park or two that has some great waterfalls?
Let's see. Certainly, there's some beautiful falls up there in Smuggler's Notch, up in Stowe. Jamaica State Park down in Jamaica has Hamilton Falls.
Yep.
It's a beautiful 125-foot cascade. Let's see. There are more that aren't coming to mind. I may have to phone a friend on that one. But we have plenty of waterfront parks, which a number of them include waterfalls.
All right. So how many of the state parks do you figure that you've visited so far?
Oh, I've visited every state park multiple times.
Wow.
Yep, it's a great privilege of my time with Forest Parks and Recreation, being able to get out into the forest and into the parks. And as my kids were growing up, that was our family favorite, to visit different state parks and camp at different state parks. And then as part of the job, visiting all the state parks and witnessing all the incredible work that goes into operating them, and how well they're kept, and getting to know every state park, because I think that's very important.
All right. Somebody has a kayak. They're ready to head out for a state park today. Where are you going to send them, Nate?
Ooh, the Connecticut River, I tell you, is just an amazing feature that you have in Lake Champlain on the western side. The Connecticut River on our eastern boundary is something that I think some folks don't realize what an amazing resource that is. And there are a number of different kayak points from point to point. If I was going to camp, I would go down to Wilgus State Park in Wethersfield, or Mount Scottney State Park in Wethersfield. And there you could probably get a site, and then you can take a variety of different trips down the Connecticut River and end at Wilgus State Park. Of course, Waterbury Reservoir, fantastic kayaking.
Yep.
Molly Skulls Pond. Kayaking is a huge... We do rent kayaks and paddle boats at many of our parks, and folks really, really enjoy that. So there are a number of parks on our website where we have, you can type in kayaking, and it'll pull up which parks are good for kayaking.
I'm really putting you to the test here, Nate, but are there any parks that offer some unique activities or something that's really unique to a specific state park?
I would say every park has those has its own personality and features.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that's very popular would be the fire towers.
Oh, yeah.
We drove down to Brookfield and went up to Alice State Park. It's a beautiful, quick little hike up the fire tower, and the views are magnificent. We have 19 of our state parks that have interpreters on staff and regular interpreter programs, which you can also find out on our website. And we have an events calendar where there's always some really interesting events going on. For example, we have Words in the Woods this year, where in partnership with the Vermont Humanities Council and the Vermont Arts Council, folks can get out into nature at different state parks and read literature with well-known folks, authors, or poets, things like that. So that's on our website too. But yeah, you did put me on the spot.
That was good, though. I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
And let's talk about something that might be a little bit more in your sweet spot then. Let's talk about passes, season passes. What are available for the parks?
Yeah, one really good deal is you can get a 10 punch card, and that doesn't expire. It's $30, and it gets you into a state park for 10 visits. An individual pass is $30, and that's just kind of like your own private pass. It's not really transferable. And you can get into a state park that way. Probably our biggest value is the car pass, the vehicle pass, which is at $90 and gets you and a carload of folks into the Vegas areas for day use visits all season long. That's very popular. And those are the three things that are flying off the shelves.
All right, Nate, I'm going to put you on the spot one last time. You got 30 seconds to send us somewhere to either see for great bird watching or raptor viewing.
Well, Quechee State Park down on Route 4 in Quechee. It's a beautiful park right on the river there, but Vins and the Raptor Center is right above the park. So that's a great place to go get started. And they have some great programs, and they can also point you to areas where there is some good bird watching, as does our website. If you want to go onto our website and type in, click on things to do, you can, nature observation is one of the categories. And if I had more than 30 seconds, I would click on that.
You're all done. Nate McKean is the director of Vermont State Parks. And like you said, to learn more about all of our state parks, vtstateparks.com. Nate, thanks so much for visiting with us this morning.
Thank you. It's been an honor. Appreciate it.
Take care. That's our show for today. Vermont Viewpoint, directed by Danny McGivrigan and produced by Rachel Connor, Zoe Helena, and Willow Zartarian. We've got Common Sense Radio with Bill Sayre up next. Then the governor's COVID-19 response news conference coming up at noon. I'm Rick Singari. I'll meet you back here tomorrow.